welcome back to Real Events Key West. Hi, I'm Shannon Kubria Ferris, and I'm with Joe Weed on this beautiful day at Higgs Beach here in Key West. Welcome, Joe.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Joe, you're running for King of Fantasy Fest, one of 3 candidates. And on your website this week, there was a compelling story that you mentioned that was a life-changing event. Would you share with the viewers about what that was?
Yeah, it was quite life-changing, and it should be something that everybody reads and shares if they get a chance to, in my opinion. Basically, I had an old friend come to town, a girl that I dated 20 years ago. Meant a lot to me at the time. We dated for about a year. I would say we were in love. She'd say we were in love. But all of a sudden, it just ended. She disappeared, and it was kind of an odd breakup. I didn't, it was just, like I said, she disappeared. I really didn't know where she went. Her parents live in town, so I would try to communicate, reach out to them, and never was any really answer to it. At some point, found out that she had moved up to East Carolina or somewhere up in the, anyhow, she moved. And so once in a while in the last 20 years, I would see her in town, visiting her parents or whatever, kind of deal, riding a bicycle around, but I never really got to talk to her. And this week, she decided to come to town. She called me, she said, "Love to see you. How's it going? It's been a long time." And I was like, heck yeah, this is awesome. I miss you, how have you been? And recently she'd gotten divorced because after the Carolinas, she moved to Colorado and that kind of stuff. So she was married and now divorced and wanted to see me, and I was excited about that, just as friends, of course, but because it'd been a long time. But so she came to town. I told her we had an event that night at Aqua Idol. It was the event for Fantasy Fest King and Queens, and she met me there. And as I got there and got organized all my stuff together and got ready to sing, I introduced her to a few people, a couple of people from the AIDS Help organization, a couple of my friends, a couple of the Kings and Queens, and my campaign people. So she became friends with them instantly. She's a real bubbly and friendly person. So I walked away, did my thing, got my thing started, and everything seemed to be fine. Later that night, we all went bouncing around after the Aqua Idol, and as we bounced around, I guess she was having conversations with multiple people. And when I mean multiple, I mean it was not just my friends sitting there. There were other people close enough by that could have heard what she was talking about. And I didn't know any of this until late night. So at some point in the night, all my friends, everybody that we were with, just kind of disappeared. And I just found her crying, but right before they disappeared, I found her crying. I was like, this is odd. Why are you crying, And she said something about her kitty cat. She had just lost her kitty cat. I was like, oh man, why are you guys talking about that stuff,
Right.
And everybody's like, we're gonna take her home. She needs to go home. I was like, no, she's fine. I'll take her in a little bit. We're gonna hang out, just 2 of us, whatever.
And at this point, you still didn't know?
Yeah, absolutely. I had no idea what was going on.
Okay.
So she stayed there with me at the bar, and we was just hanging, and everybody left. But I got a phone call from one of my friends, and that person said, "You need to not let her get involved in a conversation with you tonight that she wants to talk to you about." And I was like, it didn't make any sense to me. Why would you even call me and say that kind of thing? She's like, I can't tell you right now, but she said some things to us that probably might not help your mood tonight. You've had such a great night. We figure it's best you talk to her tomorrow about it. Of course, now it brings my attention. I'm going, what in the world could it be? So I'm having this conversation a little bit, and she's like, well, it's not a good thing. I'm like, do I have a 20-year-old kid out there somewhere? This is what's running through my head, and I'm asking the person that. She's like, no, it's nothing like that. It could be potentially worse. And I said, oh, really? Okay. So she's like, I'll talk to you later. When you drop her off, give me a call. So we went about the next hour or so hanging out, and went and dropped her off at her house and went home. And on the way, I called my friend back, and I was like, what's going on? And she begins to tell me the story about how she had this conversation with everybody. It started with one of the AIDS Help people at Aqua Idol, where she made the comment that she had been living with HIV positive for 22 years, and that she used to work with AIDS Help in the education department. And I'm going, what? This is all weird. I go, that's not true. I'm thinking, she's got a buzz, but that's not something you make up at all either. It's not a joking matter. And she says, no, Joe, I really need you to listen to me. She said, she told this to a number of people. She told it to another person and to another person, and we're all friends there, but there are other people sitting there as well. And so we started talking about it, and they put the math together, because they knew we were together 20 years ago. And they're like, so you were with Joe 20 years ago. You've been positive when you were with Joe? And she said, yes. And of course, my friends are freaking out. happened to be somebody there that I had slept with, you know, in this group. And that was a girlfriend basically of mine too at some point in life. And so, you know, you can imagine what they're all thinking right now. And then they leave. And they don't want to be there to handle it if she does talk about it right then. Yet they want me to know there's something that needs to be talked about. So I'm like, I'm denying this. I'm like, you know, there's no way. She would have told me. You know, she would have at some point told me. It's been 20 years, you know, and you know, I would have some kind of signs.
Sure.
You know what I'm thinking. So wasn't the case, and so I went to sleep. Didn't sleep great, but when I woke up, I had another phone call from my friend saying, listen, such and such has a video of her. She didn't work for AIDS Help, but she made a video for AIDS Help in the education department. And we have a copy of that. I'm like, really? So now I'm like going, oh my God. And this video was called Living Positive, or Positive Voice is what it's called.
Voice.
Positive Voice, Living HIV Positive. And she tells her story there. Well, I never have seen the video to this day yet, but
well, this just recently happened, so
yes, that prompted me though to say, you know, what in the world? You know, this is actually 2 weeks ago. I posted it this week because I needed to just work it to where it's readable and all that kind of stuff. When I posted, I want everybody to read it and get where I was coming from, where I was feeling. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go see her. I go to her house, I pick her up. I'm like, listen, just driving around, I go, you know, there were some things said about you last night, some things that you supposedly said, and I said, I can't believe it. And she's like, what's that? And I told her, you know, you've been living HIV positive, and you didn't tell me, and you couldn't tell me because you weren't loving me, you didn't know how to tell me, et cetera, et cetera. She's like, where did they get that from? You know, totally denied it to me. I'm like, going through the motions now, questioning her basically on what they had told me, and she just denied the whole thing. And so I'm feeling good, thinking, okay, well, I'm not sure how they misconstrued all this. Mm-hmm. You know? And she's like, I'd like to talk to them. You know, they can't be putting things around like this, you know, this kind of information out. And I'm like, yeah, well, no problem. I'll get you in touch with the person. So I left, went to work that day or whatever. I went to lunch, and I rode my bike to lunch, and I just happened to be downtown when I got the phone call again from my friend saying, you need to go get tested. You know, and I thought, well, I've been tested before. You know, I've had blood tests and such like that. Well, my platform is on education, and I got quite the education that day. You don't get tested by just going and getting a blood test, no matter what the panels are, you know, they call them panels, whatever the blood tests are, unless you specifically ask for an AIDS test. Mm-hmm. I did not know that. I figured, I've been tested before, I get my blood test, I gotta get insurance, whatever.
Sure.
Well, she says, no, that's not how it works. And so I said, okay, well, I rode to the commissioner. It's actually one of my buddies, he's the commissioner. I rode to his office and he wasn't there, so I was like, okay. I asked somebody there, and they said, no, you go over to the Gato building. That's the health department. So I went there, and I walked in, I rode my bike over there, I walk in, and there's nobody there, and I'm like, this is odd, and I'm embarrassed to be there in a way, you know, because I'm like, okay, I'm here for my AIDS test, you know. To me, it was just odd. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't something I've ever done, so, or any concern really with, you know. I really never thought about it hard enough to be concerned. And so nobody's there, so I leave the room and I go out and go to the bathroom, whatever, and I come back like 5 minutes later. It's like the Twilight Zone. All of a sudden, the whole room is full. Literally, there's like 7 people sitting in this room and standing there, you know, at the windows, a couple people. And now I'm really embarrassed. I'm like, okay, I got to say this now in front of all these people. Right. You know. And so as I walk in the room, I'm going to sit down. I turn, and as I turn, my ex-girlfriend is sitting there on the bench, and I just was aghast because all this was said, she denied it, now I'm there and she's there. I'm like, my heart sunk, you know. I said, did she know the day that you were going to go? No, this is the same day I talked to her, that morning. Okay. That I talked to her, and I went on to work, and then like I said, I went to lunch. She had no idea I was going, you know, because at that point I was like, good, I'm glad you're okay, you know. I don't know what this was about or how it got, you know, how it became, but you know, I kissed her goodbye and went on and went to work, whatever. And so, no, when I walked in, I think she was just as surprised to see me as I was to see her. She looked up and she goes, what are you doing? No, I looked at her and I go, what are you doing here? And she goes, I'm here to see the doctor. And I said, okay. She goes, what are you doing here? I go, I'm here to be tested. She says, good, we need to talk. Can you imagine my feelings right then? Here I am knowing what I'm there for, and now I'm believing what was told to me over the night in the morning, and not believing her at all. So we walk out in the hallway and have this conversation. It's like, she's like, I love you so much. I wish I was a better person to be able to tell you, when it happened, when this went down, but I just couldn't. I didn't know how to. I was struggling with every part of it and myself, and I just had to get out of town. I couldn't handle it. And I'm going, why, it's kind of like, why'd you lie to me this morning? She said, you just were there in my face all of a sudden. I couldn't figure out, I didn't know what to say then either. She said, but I'm glad you're here. I said, well, I'd like to go in with you with your doctor, if you don't mind, kind of thing. And she's like, okay. So we went and saw Dr. Whiteside, I think that's his name, at the clinic. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, okay, what's happening? He walks in, he starts this conversation. I tell him why I'm there, kind of thing. They start conversing about her meds and about the fact that she's divorced and she's not sure how it's going to work now with the payment. They're $3,600 a month for this cocktail that she takes. And she's been taking for many years. He's been taking care of her. And I'm thinking to myself, where the hell am I going to get that kind of money? I mean, I got good insurance, but still.
Because at this point, you're presuming that you might test positive as well.
I'm thinking, absolutely. I mean, we were together for over a year, Mm-hmm. And she had it prior to us being together. I'm thinking, oh my God, all these things are going through my head, I'm thinking, I'm a little bit angry, but at the same time, I'm more concerned about, like, what's gone on since then, what I mean? If you haven't told me, who else haven't you told, and who do I need to tell? How am I going to pay for this medicine? How my life is going to change? I'm not going to be Joe Weed, the bubbly, let's get out and have fun with everybody 24/7. It's going to be life changing for me to have to be one of them, if you will. You know what I mean? All this stuff rushed through my head.
So you got tested.
So, I went out in the hallway and waited because he said, we'll get you tested. He gave me some information, the doctor told me all kinds of things about how hard it is for a guy to get it from a female type thing, but it's not impossible.
It's true.
It's much easier the other way around. And the fact that I haven't shown symptoms is a good thing, there would have been some things in my blood count maybe that would have shown up, but so I'm feeling a little better, but still not at all right.
Right.
Until I told him, I said, I'm not leaving this office until I'm tested. He's like, no problem. He says, let me finish with her. You wait in the lobby. I go out in the lobby. In the meantime, two of my friends that work there come out in the hallway. And they see me. They're, hey, Joey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just here. I got to see the doctor or whatever. One of my friends leans over and she says, everything's confidential here. No matter what's going on, don't worry. I love you. You're my friend. We love you.
But you're still dealing with the roller coaster of feelings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was, the roller coaster was down here, though. You know what I mean? It was like I was at my lowest point there, waiting to go get tested, thinking I'm absolutely positive, and my life is absolutely.
Well, you had gone from I don't believe this to the ex-girlfriend not comfortable telling you, so denial that this even existed, and the next day you go in to get tested, and then she's there. Then you go in with her, quite intense.
Very
and
intense.
Then you're also seeing people that recognize you.
Right, which was an issue. These things are supposed to be private when, it is up to the person that is a carrier to be the one that tells people that they're with. But you don't go tell the world, I don't think. I don't really know. And I do know some people that are HIV positive. I guess I should talk to them and say, how do you cope with it? Maybe learn a little more about that part of it.
But you're having to deal with this yourself. So
right.
you're there in the office, and then I'm presuming sometime later you were tested.
Yeah, so I actually still sat there. My friend walked away, and in comes the commissioner. Come to find out, and I don't think I really realized the full intensity of this. He's the actual health department head. He's the guy. I still don't get it yet. He goes, hey, how you doing, Joey? He gives me a hug, good to see you, kind of thing. I'm like, I'm waiting on this lady named Peggy, and she's the girl that lays the test. And he goes, well, come here, I want to show you my office. So I walk down the hall. I walk past the door, I look in the door, I go, hey, if Peggy's looking for me, I'm with
Yes.
the commissioner. So embarrassing, because I get to his office, and I walk in and I sit down. He's like, if you want to see Peggy, you can see Peggy, but I'm here for you. We're friends, and if you're more comfortable seeing somebody, I was like, now I get it. I'm like, no, I'm more interested in talking to you than I am Peggy that I don't know.
Yes.
I'm sure Peggy's a very nice lady, but you're my boy. So I sit down. He gives me another lesson. There's a full education thing happening here, and in the meantime, he's putting his gloves on, and I'm going, oh my God, and. He says, listen, this test is easy. It's a little prick of the finger, and we'll be done in 15 minutes. And he says, he backed up some of the stuff that the other doctor had told me. And he said, we have one of, if not the best clinic, HIV and AIDS clinics in the country. That we are on top of the world, of the game with all this that we do, with our information and our and our
I'm
health
sure that
and
was a
all
little more comforting, but you still needed validation.
Yes, yes. So we do the finger thing. I'm sitting there. I'm shaking. I mean, literally from when I saw her in the waiting room till this point, I'm shaking. You know, they told me, both the doctor and her told me, relax, calm down. You know, it's a matter of just time. We'll figure this out. But I'm freaking out. You know, I'm thinking about other people too. You know.
Sure.
And so I just sit there and wait my time, and about 5 or 6 minutes into it, he looks at me and he says, you know, I can give you some comforting news. He says, this is, I don't know if he said off the record or not, but typically by 5 or 6 minutes, something's going to show. But we do have to wait for 15 minutes.
Yes.
That was comforting. You know, at that point, I'm relaxed. I'm going, okay, maybe I dodged a bullet here, you know. And then, of course, it came up negative, and just my body, then that roller coaster came back. Now I'm up here.
Right.
Now I'm up here, but I'm still going, holy crap, you know, that was close, you know, whatever. I'm not really sure what I was thinking at that point, but oh my God, thank God I'm okay. You know,
now, so you left
God.
that office. Did you run into the ex-girlfriend? Did she wait for you?
When I walked out, she was outside the hallway, because I remember going and giving her a hug, and I showed her my paper. And then later that day we talked, but yeah, I gave her a hug. I kissed her again. I said, you know, I love you, and I really wish this was different, but I've got to go. You know, I got to get back to work, and we'll talk later, kind of thing. And we do need to talk. I told her, you know. So later on we talked, and I told her, you know, you need to get out there and tell this to people. You can't hold this back. This was
well, at one point she did. She was on a video, so I mean, she was telling something of her story. But what's really compelling to me for you is that many candidates, when they're running for King and Queen of Fantasy Fest, they work with a lot of people as you are, and this is the second round for you that you're doing this longest running fundraiser that Key West has for AIDS help, and you run for all kinds of different reasons, and you're raising money. You're with all these folks. It probably didn't run across your mind that it would be incredibly personal.
Right.
Because when you ran before and when we've talked, not once did you mention a personal story like this at all.
Sure.
And then you said, wow, that you had quite the education from a regular fundraiser, round 2 that you're doing this, right? And so you're on perhaps automatic and just doing what you need to do. It's because it's for 8 weeks, and so you have the automated pilot going on. But
well, I didn't have a personal story before that. You know, when I ran in 03, my deal was I like to fundraise. You know, I get out there and try to do things for the community and make it a better world or whatever. You know, and I had a great time doing that, but it was a real big struggle. I was very tough on my relationship at the time. I was married. It was tough on friends. It was tough on everybody. But yeah, when you bring the story to the forefront, which is halfway through my campaign, all of a sudden, you know, now there's this new reason. You know, the light bulb goes on and says, I'm doing this for a real reason now. It's not just to fundraise, and my education happens to be my platform for a reason too, you know. I want to get it out to people, how to get tested, why get tested, you know. You never know what's going to happen to you. 20 years later, this happens, you know what I mean? And yeah, so I thought I had some lessons from the previous run. This was the biggest lesson of all, and it hit home hard, and it's hit a bunch of my friends hard. I've put it on Facebook, my story, and I've gotten a lot of phone calls and a lot of messages about it.
But the message that you're talking about, was it because it could happen to you?
Absolutely, it can happen to everybody. I said, I think something in the beginning of the story about how, you know, we're not invincible. We might think we are, but nobody is. And it can absolutely happen to you. It can happen to every one of us. And again, you never know what's going to happen 20 years down the road. It could be somebody you were with 20 years ago type thing, and everybody needs to know that. So the reason there is to get tested, you know. I mean, that's the outcome of it. Get tested, no matter what. No matter how good you've been married for 10 years, you don't know. You know, you just don't know. So you got to get tested. And to do that, you have to go ask for that test.
Yes.
You know, you just don't go thinking because you give blood, or I always thought that too. The people, when they gave blood, I was all tested about. Evidently, it's not broadcast. I don't know, but I was told you have to ask for that test. Mm-hmm. So everybody must get tested. Everybody must disclose, you know, if you have a situation. I've got a couple friends that have called me going, how do you do this? And I'm like, it's simple. Just go, yeah, but I don't want my name on some list and all that. And like, dude, don't worry about the list. And if you come out negative, you're good. If you come out positive, you just got to be able to disclose. You got to be able to think what I was thinking about these other people you're going to have to go disclose to, and how hard that's going to be. But it's something you've got to do. You're bound to do it. You have to do it if that happens to you. But don't worry about it. Just go get tested and find out,
So how are you now? This is 2 weeks later, and you've gone through this roller coaster. You've had your own personal education. Where are you at with this right now?
I'm with wanting everybody to read my post. I want everybody to share it. I think it's important enough because this thing is devastating to people. It's a scourge, and we need to eradicate it. And the best way to do that is through education and through being tested and through disclosure and through everybody knowing really how it works, what the process is, and what your responsibility is.
It sounds like you're even more motivated to put that message out there about education, to get tested, and it can happen to you even more so than when you were in the beginning of your campaign.
Absolutely. The education idea was there, but it was like, just read about it. There's information. Here's some pamphlets at the events. You hand out some stuff on your tables or whatever. I think I need to talk about it at every event now. I don't know if I need to tell the whole story, but I need to talk about how it can be you, and
it can happen to you even 20 years ago. Know your status.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joe, for telling us today this very compelling story, and we wish you the very best in your campaign.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks. Love you guys. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.